carry McCracken County?
Yeah.
Are we going to carry it big?
Yeah.
Real big?
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And I'll tell you, part of the reason we're going to do that is because of the great leadership that you've got right here, with folks like Kyle, with folks like Larry Roberts over here, Larry Sanderson, and others that have helped lead working men and women all of these years, not just here, but all over Kentucky. Let's give them a round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the reasons that I am standing here today as your governor is because 4 years ago, you and others like you all across this state, the working men and women all across this state, helped me to take our government back for them. And we did it. And we did it in a big way. And I want to thank you for that. I hope you see how we have returned that gift that you gave to me. You know, I'm not sure that I could really have to say anything else about this election other than my opponent brought Governor Scott Walker of Wisconsin in here to campaign for. You talk about an enemy. You talk about an enemy of working families in this country. And that is what the other ticket stands for, folks. There is no bigger difference between any two tickets than there is in this election on November the 8th. And we've got to remember that, and we've got to get out and make sure we deliver a real strong message that working men and women are the foundation of Kentucky society and vitality. I'll tell you another part of the leadership here that I truly appreciate. That's folks like Will Corsi and Fred Nessler, who you all continue to send up to work with me to support you in Frankfort. Folks, there's no question it's been a tough 4 years. We all know that. I still remember Inauguration Day, December 11th of 2007. We got up that morning and it was drizzly and a little overcast, and so the first thing Jane and I did, the first thing on the agenda was a church service. And so we went down to church, and an hour later came out, the skies had parted, the sun had come out, and we had a 70-degree day all day long. And I know many of you were there and you enjoyed that day with us. The inaugural balls that night were wonderful. The next morning I got up all fired up, ready to go for my first day as governor, walked over and into the governor's office and was met by my budget director, who looked at me and said, "Well, I hope you enjoyed yesterday." Because we're going to cut about $300 million out of our budget over the next 10 days. Now that's the way I was greeted as governor. That's when this recession hit us full in the face. And it's been a struggle on all of us. I know our families have been sitting around the kitchen table every night over the last 4 years, trying to figure out how to make ends meet, how we're going to keep food on the table and a roof over our head and clothes on our backs and send the kids to school so that they have a better quality of life as they grow up into adulthood. Business has had the same experience. Government has had the same experience. We've cut over $1 billion out of our spending over the last 4 years. 9 different times we've had to reduce our budget because of this recession. 9 different times. Senator Williams and his bunch said the same thing. Cut everything across the board, Governor. Cut education, cut veterans, cut seniors, cut all of our programs, and balance the budget. And 9 different times I said no. Sure, everything the government does is important to somebody, and I realize that. But there are a few things that government does that are the most important things in the minds of most Kentuckians. And educating our children is the most important thing. And so so we kept funding the classroom instruction that we need to give them a world-class education. We made public safety a priority because there's no more basic duty of a government than to keep people safe in their homes and on the streets. And we made economic development a priority, keeping the jobs we have and trying to create more jobs for our people, because we all know that the fastest way out of this recession is getting our folks back to work. And so we've worked night and day, 24/7 on that. Now, we're not out of this yet. We know that. We still got way too many people out of work. But folks, the good news is that we're starting to turn that corner now here in Kentucky, and slowly but surely, our economy is beginning to improve. We've got to make sure we continue that momentum. About the best evidence I can give you as to how our economy is beginning to pick up is something that happened just last June the 30th, when we closed our books on our last fiscal year at the state level. For the first time since this recession hit us, we were finally able to deposit some money back into our rainy day fund. But we just didn't deposit a few bucks. We deposited $122 million back into our rainy day fund. Think about that a minute. What that really means, that is revenue that we didn't expect to come in. And that's coming from more people working and paying taxes and businesses doing better than we thought they would do. So while we're not out of this, that does indicate to us that we're beginning to climb out of this slowly but surely. And we've got it moving in the right direction. We've got to keep it moving in the right direction, and that is one of the reasons that November the 8th is so important. Now let me talk about this election for a minute. I know that all of you all have been seeing these polls. You know, the latest ones out there have us anywhere from 25 to 30 points ahead. But let me tell you about those polls. I really like them. I'll have to admit, I really like them. And quite honestly, they're pretty accurate right now. But the phrase that I need you to concentrate on is right now. Because folks, we've still got 16 days to go. At 6 a.m. on the morning of November the 8th, the score is going to be 0-0. And what happens on that day is what's going to determine the outcome of this election. And if people don't go vote, it will affect the outcome of that election. That's why it's so important for you to leave here tonight re-energized about going and getting our vote out. You know, I appreciate it when somebody comes up to me and says, "Governor, this is over with." No worry. That's when I worry. That's when I worry. Because, you know, folks that kind of get that in their mind, they may say, "Well, you know, we can go to Florida early, it doesn't matter. Or I can go get my hair fixed that day, it doesn't matter." It matters. It matters. And that's why you need to get re-energized. We need to get on the telephones. We need to be knocking on the doors. We need to be talking to our friends and neighbors to make sure they know how important this election is. We're going to win this election. There's no question in my mind we're going to win, but I don't just want to win. I want to blow this guy out of the water. We want to beat him like a drum, because we've got to send a very strong, clear message to that fella and those folks around him that we are sick and tired of the kinds of obstructionist politics that he practices. Amen. This is a fellow that stood in the way of every progressive idea in the last 10 years in Kentucky. He needs to hear a very loud and clear message that we don't want any more of that. We are sick and tired of the kind of politics like you're seeing in Washington, D.C. right now, where we got a bunch of adults up there acting like kids in a food fight, instead of adults trying to move this country ahead. And my opponent would love to import that kind of politics right into Frankfurt. Are we going to tell him no?
Yes.
Are we going to tell him no?
Yes.
We want to tell him no in loud and clear terms. Now, let me tell you a story, and this is a true story, but it emphasizes this point very well. The 1957 Kentucky Derby. Now, I know there's nobody in here other than me that's old enough to remember that. But I remember it. And let me tell you what happened. Those horses came around the far turn and started thundering down that stretch. And a horse named Gallant Man, with the Hall of Fame jockey Willie Shoemaker on, started pulling away from the pack. And it looked like the Gallant Man was going to take the whole thing and win the Kentucky Derby. But as they came to the 16th pole, and the 16th pole is 1/16 of a mile before the finish line, Willie Shoemaker made a mistake. He thought the 16th pole was the finish line. And as that horse crossed past the 16th pole, he stood up in the stirrups and raised his crop like he had just won the Derby. There was a horse named Iron Liege that went right by him and won the Kentucky Derby that year. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're at the 16th pole. We're not at the finish line, and we cannot afford to stand up in our stirrups and claim victory. We got to ride as hard as we can ride toward that finish line. And the finish line is November the 8th. And if you'll do that with me, we'll not only have a great victory, but we will send a loud and clear message to Senator Williams and his bunch that the working men and women are still in charge in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and you'd better get out there. Let's get a vote out. Will you be with me?
Yeah.
I want to hear you. Will you be with me?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow, that's some message. And I think the message is crystal clear. And I want to remind everybody out here that we're up against it. We're up against it just like we were last time. We cannot let up. So, these folks here, they're tough. And I'd like to think that the men and women, the working men and women of Kentucky, the school teachers, people from Western Kentucky, I'd like to think that we're tough. So, it's time to get out there and show these folks how tough we are. Now, these people here, they have vowed to fight for you. Are we going to stand up and fight for them?
Yeah.
Are we going to stand up and fight for them?
Yeah.
Another term? Send out a meeting?
Yeah.
We are